Learning English Podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about something that I think a lot of people struggle with, but might not always feel comfortable talking about. And that is how to be happy.
Right.
Even if you don't have a ton of friends. And you know, we've all been there, right?
Totally.
Where maybe you want to, go see a movie.
Yeah.
And you don't really have anyone to go with and you feel a little weird about going alone.
Yeah, you don't want to be that person.
Right, exactly. Or like you have this, this travel bug.
Oh.
And you really want to go somewhere, but you don't necessarily have a travel buddy. And so we're going to kind of dig into why is that?
Yeah.
Why is that something that makes us feel uncomfortable?
Yeah.
What are some of the advantages of actually spending time alone?
The upsides. Yeah.
Exactly. And then some practical tips for how to actually enjoy yourself when you're on your own. Because I think so much of the messaging that we get from, society, from the media is that, happiness is like a big group of friends.
What's a party?
Just a party. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not always the reality, right?
Not at all.
So
yeah.
If that's not your reality, how can you still live a really happy and fulfilling life?
How can you thrive?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's start with I guess the fear.
Okay.
Why does the idea of being alone feel so icky for a lot of people?
Well, I think like you were saying,
Yeah.
it really is all about what we're used to seeing
Yep.
and what's expected of us.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so much pressure to have a big social circle and a really busy social calendar.
Right.
And if you're not doing that, then
Then you're failing.
you're a failure or you're not as happy.
Right. Or people must think you're weird.
Yeah. Totally.
Which isn't necessarily true.
Right.
But it's that perception.
It is. And think about how many movies or TV shows you've seen where it's the main character is just kind of off on their own.
Right.
And they're happy being alone.
Exactly. They always have their crew.
They always have their posse, their group.
Their squad.
Their squad, yeah. And I think social media also kind of perpetuates.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all about showing the curated version of your
super
fun social life.
Exactly.
Even if behind the scenes that's not really what's happening.
Right.
And so I think it's interesting too because we talk about having a lot of friends.
Yeah.
But how many of those are actually deep, meaningful?
Right. Is it quantity versus quality?
Exactly.
I think that's a really important distinction.
Yeah.
To make you could have tons of acquaintances.
Right.
But if you don't have those few really close people that you can really rely on and that really get you, it's just not the same.
It's not the same. And then there's that whole thing about doing things alone. Right.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have this fear of judgment.
Oh, for sure.
Of if I go to a restaurant by myself
alone. Yeah.
people are going to think I'm a loser.
Yeah. Or look at that sad person.
Right.
Reading alone.
And it's logically we know that probably most people aren't even paying attention to us.
Yeah. They're worried about their own lives.
They're in their own world.
They don't even notice.
You don't even notice.
Yeah.
But it's still this thing that we get in our heads.
Right. It's that anxiety.
Yeah.
It's just ingrained in us.
But I also think it's interesting because, humans are social creatures.
Right.
We are wired
Pack animal.
to be in groups, right? And so I think there is a legitimate need for connection. But I think it's about reframing what that connection looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have to be this huge group of friends.
It can be small. It can be family.
Yeah.
It can be, people that you work with.
Colleagues.
Yeah. And it can even be a connection with yourself.
Yes. That's a really important one.
Which I think is something that we'll talk about a little bit more.
Definitely. Yeah.
But I think that fear of being alone, it does tie into that innate desire to be part of a group.
Yes.
And back in the day, that was a survival thing.
Right. You had to be part of the tribe to survive.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about the fear.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the good stuff.
Okay, the upsides.
The upsides, yeah. What are some of the actual advantages of spending more time alone?
One thing that really comes to mind is self-discovery.
Oh, yeah.
When you're not constantly surrounded by other people. You have so much more space to like figure out who you are and what you want.
It's like you can finally hear your own thoughts without all the noise.
Without the influence of other people.
Right. And our sources talk about like discovering new interests, like things that you might not have even realized you were into if you were always just kind of like following the crowd.
Right. Or doing what other people wanted to do.
Exactly. And then, I think another big advantage is just like reduced stress.
Oh my gosh.
Like friendships can be amazing.
They're great.
But they can also be a lot of work.
They can be,
There's drama.
There's conflict. There's like...
You got to put in the effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's just nice to like have a break from that.
Take a step back.
And just like be in your own little bubble.
Yeah, and just be with yourself.
Where there's no drama.
Exactly.
Right. And then, the other thing that I think is really cool is like that increased independence.
Yes.
Like the freedom to just do things.
On your own term.
On your own terms, yeah.
Yeah.
Without having to like...
Wait for someone to go with you or...
Coordinate schedules,
yeah. Like you want to go try that new restaurant?
Go for it. You want to travel to that place you've always wanted to go? Do it. Don't wait for someone.
Exactly. And I think that can actually help with the loneliness too.
Absolutely.
Because it's like you're not waiting for someone else to like give you permission.
Yeah, you're taking control.
Live your life.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about like why the fear and then like the advantages of solitude.
The good stuff.
So how do we actually like embrace it and enjoy it?
It's a mindset shift.
It is.
It's really about changing the way you think about being alone. Instead of thinking, oh, I'm alone, I have no friends.
Yeah.
Try to reframe it as, I enjoy my own company.
I love being by myself.
Yes. It's a choice.
It is. And it sounds kind of cheesy.
It does, but our thoughts really do influence our feelings. Oh, absolutely. So if you can change your thoughts, you can change how you feel about something.
Exactly.
But it's not just about like thinking positive thoughts.
Right.
You also have to like actually have things to do.
Yeah, you need to fill that time.
That you enjoy.
With things that you enjoy.
Yeah. And so that's where like cultivating joyful hobbies comes in.
Yes. Like find things that you love to do.
Yeah.
And that make you feel good.
Whether it's like reading.
Yeah.
Journaling.
Cooking.
Yeah.
Exercising.
Learning a new skill. Like whatever. Lights you up.
Yes. And when you're engaged in something that you're passionate about, you're not even thinking about being alone.
Exactly. You're just like in the flow.
You're in the zone.
Yeah. And then, another thing that our sources talk about is solo travel.
Okay.
Which I know can sound scary to some people.
I get it.
But it can also be like incredibly rewarding.
So rewarding.
Because you have the freedom to do whatever you want. You set the pace. You go where you want to go. You see what you want to see.
You see what you want to see. Yeah. And it's also a really great way to like meet new people.
That's true.
Because you're kind of forced to put yourself out there.
Or more open to it.
A little bit more. And then like, not to mention just like the confidence boost.
Oh yeah.
That you get.
Huge confidence boost.
From like navigating a new place on your own.
It's like you can handle anything.
Yeah. So if you're thinking about solo travel.
Yeah.
Like our sources recommend starting small.
Baby steps.
Yeah. Like maybe just a weekend trip to a nearby town or something.
To get your feet wet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're getting good at being alone.
We are.
But we still need connection.
We do.
Right?
We're human.
We're human. So how do we build those meaningful connections?
Okay.
Without feeling like we need to have like...
a million friends.
A million best friends.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that our sources talk about is like strengthening family bonds.
Family.
Yeah. Because for a lot of people, like family is...
a built-in support system.
A built-in support system.
Yeah.
And so, even if it's just like regular phone calls or visits or like sharing your thoughts and feelings.
Sharing meals.
Yeah. Just like making an effort.
Yeah, making time.
To connect with your family.
Absolutely.
And then, the other thing that I think is really cool is like finding your tribe.
Your people.
Yeah. Like people who share your interests, your passions. And so that could be like joining a book club.
Yeah.
Or a fitness group.
A hiking club.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even online forums.
Online forums, yeah. Like anything where you can connect with people who are into the same things that you are.
And even if you don't become like best friends with everyone,
right?
Just having those shared interests can make you feel less alone.
Less alone, yeah. And then lastly, something that I think is really simple but powerful.
Okay, what's that?
Is just being kind to strangers.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like just like small little acts of kindness.
Random acts of kindness.
Yeah, like smiling at the barista or holding the door open for someone.
Yeah.
Or, you know, just like striking up a conversation with the cashier. Like those little things can actually make a big difference.
They can.
You know?
For both of you.
For both of you, yeah.
Yeah.
And it just kind of reminds us that like we're all in this together.
Yes.
Even if we don't have like a huge inner circle, you know?
We're all connected.
We're all connected. So as we wrap up here, what's like the main takeaway?
The big takeaway.
The big takeaway.
That you want our listeners to remember. I think the most important thing is to remember that being alone doesn't have to equal being lonely. You can be perfectly happy and content, even if you don't have a ton of friends.
It's a skill.
It is. And it's a skill worth developing.
Yeah, and like true happiness comes from within.
It does.
It doesn't come from like the number of people that you're surrounded by.
No. It's about you.
It's about you. So on that note, here's a little something to think about.
Okay.
What brings you joy? What are the things that you're passionate about? And how can you make more time for those things in your life?
Good question.
Even if you're doing them alone. All right. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Thanks, everyone.